Hey there guys, been a while. I'm Axel the Beast and this is the Curiosity Shop Zelda Dungeon Mailbag. Sorry for the wait on the new video. We were trying to get a cool new spiffy new camera to work and it wasn't working out, so we figured it had been long enough and we should just default back on the old camera and do a video anyway. Sorry about that. Work it out next time, I suppose. This first question was actually asked by a bunch of different people. I think everyone was asking it because I did that whole thing about the Gorons in Wind Waker. And like why I didn't think they were that odd, that they survived the flood. So anyway, the question is, why are there no Zora in Wind Waker, and or why did they evolve into the Rito? Well, unfortunately, I think I gotta give it a bit of that it's a video game answer that everyone hates, because it's like, it doesn't allow any theorizing. But, basically, I think that, they kind of made it so they got rid of the Zora and gave an air race because they couldn't have had an underwater race. It wouldn't have worked in the story and the way the plot works. Because if there were a water race, they would have swam down and seen Hyrule. And it also would have put them in a really powerful position and would have changed the story and the setup a little bit, if you ask me. I also think there's a bit of an artistic reason for doing it. I mean, I think with Wind Waker they wanted to try out a lot of new things and try out some new races, ideas, and characters. And I think so what they did is they turned a lot of the old races into new ones, like they did with the Kokiri, turned it into the Koroks. And I think that's what they did with the Zora, turning it into the Rito. If you want to take an evolutionary way of looking at it, which I don't personally like to do, but other people do, so I'll humor you people. Just kidding. The differences between freshwater and saltwater creatures. Zora always lived in lakes and rivers, and this is the ocean. It's also they've lived in smaller bodies of water where they could settle on the bottom, and they can't do that with the Great Sea. So maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Like I said, I don't like these theories, and it's mainly because I don't like these evolutionary theories, and it's mainly because they can't really work. It's just a magic, crazy species made up for the hell of it. Alright, so, Monty G asks, is the next Zelda game going to be voice acted? I have heard some rumors would be horrified if it was. Well, there's no info on Zelda Wii having voice acting. Like a lot of things relating to that game, we don't have any proof, no evidence, nothing. I do think it's very possible, especially with Twilight Princess and how cinematic the feel was. There was even some moments in Sphere Tracks I thought that were a little extra cinematic, at least at the beginning there. So I think, just the way Twilight Princess was done, I kind of think they are leading up to it. Me personally, I liked it not being voice acted, and not because I don't think they will do voice acting well. This is Nintendo. I think they're fully capable of doing awesome voice acting. They did it with Metroid Prime 3. Which surprised the hell out of me, by the way. I think they could definitely do good voice acting. I'd prefer if Link didn't talk. And I'm not to say I would hate it if they did it, but I prefer they don't, because I like the crazy little thing where the characters go blah 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 blah, or just make hey and shit and sounds like that. I think it just kind of had its own style, and I was fond of it, and I am fond of it, and probably always will be fond of it. I could live with the voice acting, but I still kind of like that little thing. I think it's cute and interesting. But that's just me. Bring on the voice acting, I suppose, if you gotta, but I'd rather Link not talk. I'm old-fashioned. Kyle Kuhn asks, seeing as you are so eager to have the magic meter return in Zelda Wii, would you also like some old items as well, such as the Cane of Samaria, the magic hammer, and magic boomerang to be included for puzzles, enemies, etc.? Hell yeah! I would really love that. I would love to have the old items back. I thought some of them were really creative and odd, and to throw them into a 3D environment with 3D graphics, puzzles, etc. would be pretty interesting. The Cane of Samaria would be kind of an odd choice. Drop a block and push it. I don't know if that would really work in the 3D environment. If they changed it, it could be interesting, like in some of the handhelds it shot fire if it split up. So, potential there. I like items like the Magic Cape, turn you invisible. You could have some really great stealth moments. The Magic Hammer was in Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, essentially, in the form of the Megaton Hammer and the Skull Hammer. And they've had different boomerangs, but, I'd also love to see, like what they did with Twilight Princess, some more of that, in that they took old items and they took these crazy spins on them, like the Gale Boomerang, the new way of using the lantern, the just stuff like that, the bomb arrows, etc. I think that they could do a lot more of that, and that'd be pretty fun and interesting. I liked having old items, but crazy new versions with new abilities. I think that's an excellent way of, keeping the classics, like the bombs and the bow and the boomerang, to appease the uptight fans like me, and also bringing out some new ideas. I do think the series needs new ideas, but I think there can be a mix of the classics and the new ones, and even combining them both in one. I think it's an easy combination, really. Makes you wonder why they didn't do it sooner. Zelda Freak asks, do you think there really is a master timeline kept by someone? If so, do you think it will be revealed sometime? If not, which games do you think are related? I don't think there's a master timeline at all. I think that they were just making the games to go, one game at a time, and then they noticed the fans were connecting the games, and they went like, huh. And they created this grand conspiracy, and they just decided, we'll make them think we know what we're doing, and then they'll just they'll throw these little parts in that sort of connect the games and get all the theorizing going to generate interest. That's my opinion. I mean, conspiracy is a bit of a strong word, but that's how I feel a little bit. I don't think they originally intended a timeline like that. I don't think the timeline split even was originally intended by them. I think they ran with it. I do believe in small timelines, like the relations between specific games, like Ocarina of Time, The Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, The Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, The Twilight Princess, Wind Waker to Phantom Hourglass to Spirit Tracks, etc. I believe in those, but I don't really get into the timeline theorizing. I mean, sometimes I contradict myself and do it a little, but I don't really get into it too much, so I can't really fully answer your question. I know I'm cheating, but you're gonna have to deal with it. Alright, Brody Karsuski asks, do you think that some of the Legend of Zelda titles were hastily put together to calm fans? Examples, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, Link's Awakening, Spirit Tracks. No, I don't think so, necessarily. I mean, yeah, they were made to be smaller games, but I wouldn't say they were hastily put together, like, in a bad way. I think they have a lot of games that are like Zelda Light. They made, made simpler, smaller games so they could make more games. Not necessarily to appease fans, but just to keep the series going and enrich the lore and, build off more ideas that they could only pull off in one game, so they make smaller sub-games, Or they try out smaller ideas or experimental ideas in these games, like Minish Cap and all those kinstones. Oh, boy. All those kinstones. Anyway, and of course, I think they kind of go in with their own thing with the side games, like with the linear DS games, But whatever, I don't think that they're just hastily throwing them together, making crap games, trying to milk it or anything. I just think they're trying to make small games and to expand the series. That's how I feel. Maybe you're onto something. I don't personally agree. Okay, last question. Lucinda Wentworth asks, what are the top 5 things about Ocarina of Time that you feel make it the best rated Zelda game? Would you say they should put them in all console games? I'm not sure I could list 5. And for first note, as I don't actually myself believe Ocarina of Time is the best game, I do think it's one of the better games, and it's like in my top 3, but it's not my favorite game. I don't even think it's necessarily the best one, though it's up there. I don't know if I could list 5 things, but I have some thoughts of why people consider it at the top. And my primary one is it was the first 3D Zelda. It revolutionized Zelda gameplay, and it broke new ground. It designed the current style of gameplay we've been seeing. Every 3D Zelda since, and even some of the 2D Zeldas have borrowed from Ocarina of Time's base. I mean, the rolling, the jumping at edges, everything. It's kind of the great granddaddy of the current series. Another thing was its length. Compared to some other games in the series, it had pretty perfect length, as well as compared to its difficulty. And it was a good mix of being able to be hard enough for some gamers and easy enough for anyone to get into it. And that's another thing. I think it was kind of a broad game. I think the way it was designed, it could appeal to anyone. And it tried a lot of new ideas, had human Ganondorf. It's just the father of modern Zelda. And I think a lot of people, one way or another, recognize it for that. And there's also a lot of nostalgia. And that's how I feel. Yeah. So that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions in to my email address. It's a little harder for me to deal with it when you send them in the comments, so if you could send them to my email, please. You can find the email in the description over there, or possibly over there if you're on the Zelda Dungeon main site. And send me your questions, your Zelda-related questions, and see you next time, guys.